Alright, welcome to another edition of Huckins on Film. I'm your host, Kyle Huckins, and, well, we're going to do something a little different this time. We're actually not quite talking about film. It's related to film, though. We're going to discuss this right here. Title, Swedish Sensationsfilms, a clandestine history of sex, thrillers, and kicker cinema. I picked this up at the Maryland Death Fest, earlier this year. I believe it was actually sold to me by the author himself. Memory's a little hazy because that was a few months ago, and it was the Maryland Death Fest. There was a good chance I was drunk at the time. I was feeling pretty good for that weekend. Let's just put it like that. That's not the point, though. This is a basic history of Swedish exploitation flicks. Kind of a narrow genre, but it's one of those. I was talking to him, it's like, well, for $10, you could do a lot worse. And for those of you who are into Swedish exploitation flicks, perhaps you're aware, no, if you are in exploitation flicks, I'm sure you know Thriller, A Cruel Picture, starring Christina Lindberg. One of the classics of the rape-revenge subgenre of exploitation films. In fact, one of the first rape-revenge films is also Swedish, made in 1960, Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring, which was pretty much remade into The Last House on the Left by Wes Craven. I've never seen The Virgin Spring, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't have bumbling, slapsticky cops and kazoo music. Good call, Ingmar. Very good call there. I'm not sure why Craven did that. But, overall, good stuff. Some things in here, a lot of stuff here I didn't know because I'm just not familiar with Sweden outside of hockey and death metal. Actually, there's a hockey connection in here. It's a film called... oh crap, I'm blanking on the title. Give me a second. Oh. It's called Don't Leave Me Alone, starring Pelle Lindbergh. The same Pelle Lindbergh would later come over to North America and find fame and success, not as an actor, but as a goaltender for the Philadelphia Flyers. Winning Vezina for top goaltender in 1985, leading the Flyers to the Stanley Cup Finals, and probably would have added on to his accomplishments, except after that season, he was killed in an accident driving his Porsche. So if you're ever watching a Flyers game and you hear chants of "buy a Porsche" directed at the goalie, yeah, that's where that comes from. Not proud of that as a hockey fan, but it is the truth. I mean, sure, screw the Flyers, but still, not cool. Overall, though, it is a good book. Basically, it has a page for each film. It gives you the title, cast listing, director on the side, and a brief synopsis. Some are longer than others. It's a good way to do it, but I did have a few issues with how it was done. I mean, there are films in here that were only screened once for a few critics. Apparently they will never be seen. To me, there's kind of no reason to put them in there if no one's ever going to see them. They might have been masterpieces, they might not. They might have been not good, they might have been crap. But the point is, we'll never know. And since no one ever saw them, they didn't really have an impact. So it's just kind of wasting time. Maybe have like a little lost film appendix in the back. You can have a bunch of them on a couple of pages. It seemed like you get a whole page, just kind of padded out the book. As for the format, I liked that part. But as for the order the films are in, it's completely random. You know, this thing goes from about the mid-50s to 93. It's almost 40 years. These aren't in chronological order. They're not by director or by actor. They're just fuck all random. I really don't get why they did that. To me, going chronological order, you would get a much better feel for how the Sensations films evolved. You know, it's a history. History happens chronologically. This, it's all over the place. I think it kind of hurts the overall effect. You know, I think it started with Arne Mattsson's films in the 50s and 60s when he was a critical darling, and followed him when he was not a critical darling, but he was making great sleaze. That would have been far more interesting. The other major nitpick I have is, okay, Christina Lindberg is on the cover from Thriller. She also wrote the foreword. And it's pretty good. You know, she reminisces about her days as an exploitation film queen. And it sounds like, you know, she had fun, no regrets or anything. Great. Glad she had fun doing it. You know, I certainly have enjoyed watching them. But the author, Daniel Ekeroth, is clearly her number one fanboy. Now, I get why. She's a damn good actress. And in her prime, oh my god, absolutely smoking hot. But there are films that she makes a cameo in, and half the synopsis of the film is talking about the cameo. He actually doesn't do so bad when she's the main character in the film. I guess because he talks about her as much as you should talk about the main character. But she can appear in a few frames, and she gets almost a paragraph at times. And she has a very extraordinarily minor part. That can get a little vexing. Other things I didn't expect in here. The name Stellan Skarsgård, who I'm sure you've seen in something. Most recently, he was the one scientist who was working for Loki in the Avengers. I'm blanking on the character's name. But he was the scientist from Thor who ended up being enlisted by Loki in the Avengers movie. He's in the original version of Insomnia, which is really good. Really, I believe he was also in Ronin. He's been in a ton of flicks. Early in his career in Sweden, he was in quite a few of these. Other great stuff in here. Book has quite a few pictures. I'm looking for some that I can show because the author does not shy away from showing nude photos in this. Not a complaint, but you know, just a heads up if you're offended by nudity, you're probably not going to read a history of Swedish exploitation films. And if you are, yeah, honestly, you should have seen that coming a mile away. Yeah, just give me a second here. Okay, most of them are in black and white, but in the middle of the book does actually have a color spread in there. And some of them are goofy, some of them are, well, awful. Awful, unwatchable, and awful, and oh, no, oh, dear Lord. You know, the good kind of awful. But all in all, if you're really interested in any kind of exploitation flicks, for all of its faults, Ekeroth still put together a pretty good book about a very interesting subject. Yeah, I had nits to pick, but all in all, I would say check it out if you're into exploitation films at all. Well, this is Kyle Huckins for Huckins on Film, fucking off, and happy reading.